Welcome, everybody, to Beyond the Shadows. I'm author and ghost historian Mike Ricksecker. With me, as always, is our chat shenanigator from the Edge of the Rabbit Hole, a fantastic writer in her own right, Shauna Wonkel. She's like, hey. Okay, so tonight we're going to be talking about the effects of horror movies on paranormal culture. This has been we've taken a look at this a couple times before. It's been an interesting topic. We've talked about, Hollywood demons versus real demons and things like that. But it's interesting to me how the horror movies that are out there that, they're great, they're enjoyable, we love them, they're fantastic entertainment, but they have really given an impression to those in the genre, in the community that enjoy those type of movies, also enjoy the paranormal, ghost hunting, investigating the paranormal investigations, all of that. It's giving them an impression of what the paranormal ought to be when a lot of times it's just not. I kind of want to start off, we'll kind of, back up here in time a little bit. And I think the real first big one was like The Exorcist. And if you notice around that time frame, The Exorcist comes out, scared the crap out of everybody, and then all of a sudden the Catholic Church started receiving all of these calls for exorcisms, which, it really wasn't called for, in a lot of cases in which maybe they just had a haunting going on. And that happens a lot too. And that's happening in today's culture right now, where you're having a lot of these movies come out where everything is, a demon. It's all demon-related movies and television shows. And so now everybody that has a haunting going on in their house believes that they have a demon. So, and I know we've talked about this plenty of times. What do you think?
I think probably one of the most, no, don't get me wrong, I like scary movies. They're good entertainment, but then, especially if you have like the paranormal movies or the network paranormal shows and, people are showing up and behaving like they do in these shows and in these movies. And then they're like, why is this not happening? Why am I wasting my money going on this, hunt or whatever if nothing's going to happen? This is how it happens on TV. Why isn't it happening? It just doesn't happen that way.
Yeah, that does play into a lot of these, public ghost hunts that people host. I mean, they do them down there at Mineral Springs, which we are very familiar with, and other locations as well across the country. And people are expecting to get, scared out of their shoes. We talked about it actually this past weekend with Silcon, because they're doing the investigation there at the old Charleston Hospital. Tom McNicholas is down there. He was there. And you had those guys that were goofing around. They're expecting to scare, realizing that, we're not going to have like an actual demon, jump out and bite our face off. So they decided to go and hide. And as, we're coming down the hall and into that one utility room, they throw a dustpan at my feet thinking that I'm going to get scared and jump, So, yeah, that's kind of where this, culture of the horror movies has taken us to. That everybody's looking for the big jump scare on these, public ghost hunts and investigations.
Just be patient, because, I get jump scares at Paranormal Investigations, and they're actual authentic, spirit, jump scares. Every once in a while, one of them will come at you when you're not paying attention. And, these spirits, these haunted venues, they're actually, if they're, legitimately haunted, it doesn't have to happen like it does in the movies, but sometimes the real thing is, by far more entertaining for me than anything I could watch in a movie theater. Because in the movie theater, you almost always find out what happens in the end. When you're dealing with an investigation, you don't always know what happens at the end.
Yeah,
it's still a mystery.
It's ongoing.
Keeps going. Yeah. And some people are looking for that quick
scare?
No. Instant gratification.
Instant gratification.
I'm asking a question, I'm getting an answer.
Oh, yeah, like with the
Pardon
ghost
me
box.
while I
Okay.
roll my eyes. I mean, I am sorry, but be patient. You know, the radio doesn't talk to you. Spirits don't talk. Spirits don't always talk like that. You know, I understand. It's very frustrating. I get it. You know, I ask questions a lot of times. I don't get an answer to them, but that's part of adulting.
Nope.
You know, I'm a big girl. I can handle disappointment. That's why I just keep doing it over and over and over again. Eventually, someone's going to give me an answer, and I'm going to be there when it happens. So, yeah, that kind of got off the topic of movies, but
It's all right.
you know,
I understand where you're coming from, but
But in
it's
the
it's the
movies.
influence. It's the influence of, and that's what we're talking about, is the effects. What effects do the movies, and you know, it can include the television shows as well, have on our paranormal culture? So that is the effect when people come into these locations after having viewed some of these movies. Robert Hanna threw down in there The Entity 1981 with Barbara Hershey based off of true events. A majority of the movie is, but once they get into like that whole scientific experiment and all that they were setting up, that's where it like really derails from what really happened. Hers was a continuing, ongoing case. It didn't end. It basically followed her wherever she went. So, and the writer of the book followed along with her. But you kind of look back on that history, you know, even from a cinematic viewpoint, where you know the Exorcist inspired, you know, those movies like the Amityville Horror. You know, that was the next big thing, was that one. The Entity was another one, kind of, you know, following after. You know, you started seeing, you know, a lot of themed movies, even though they were supposed to be based off of real incidents. The Amityville Horror, of course, very controversial with, you know, whether it was really based off of something real or not. We're going to have Alexandra Holzer on Edge of the Rabbit Hole next week, and we'll be talking about that because her father, Hans Holzer, was involved with that in Amityville. The Possession, Amityville 2, was based off of, was mostly based off of his work. So, yeah, you see this. You saw that during the 70s and early 80s like that, and you see it now with the Conjuring movie universe, where, you know, again, it's all, you know, demon, demon, demon. Now they have this nun demon, which isn't, which is just a name that they pulled out of the old Goetic grimoires, and it isn't even real. They base a whole movie off of her, and people are thinking that this stuff is real, which is why we've done many of the videos that we have, is kind of to explain, here's the actual real truth behind these cases, because people are just mistaken, you know. Right now, and I threw it down in the description here for the event, Andrea Perron right now, because of the first Conjuring movie and how everybody thinks that that's what really happened, to the point where they went to the cemetery, Bathsheba Sherman's grave, and actually destroyed the headstone and desecrated the grave, not understanding what really happened. She's putting together she wrote her trilogy of books. She's working on a movie trilogy. So there's a Kickstarter campaign that has just been initiated yesterday to start on that. So check out the link for that. You know, but it just, you know, that's also an effect of the movies, that people will go to these grave sites thinking that Bathsheba Sherman is this demon that possessed Carolyn Perron, which never happened. Carolyn Perron did not get possessed. But they saw that in the movies, so they go to the cemetery and destroy the headstone. You know, that's a very negative effect.
yeah, unfortunately, you know, and then some of these scary movies, some of the stuff, you know, and some of it could be based on actual historical facts, you know, and then they just spice it up a little bit. But, you know, then people start, you know, taking the spice as truth too. And then they're like, well, you know, oh no, you know, now that this is this terrible thing, but it is by far a more positive thing to, you know, take what you're watching with these movies with a grain of salt and do your research. You know, find out if there's some actual truth, facts. You know, there may not be. It may just be someone's wild imagination. You don't know, but I'm more interested in what, you know, what the muse was behind the subject, behind the movie. I always want to know that. So
Yeah, absolutely. Darren Buss throws down there, Blair Witch Project, when it came out, people thought it was a real thing. Yeah, it was one of those found footage films. And I actually lived in Frederick, Maryland at the time that the Blair Witch Project came out. And the town in question there, Burkittsville, is just right up the road, a couple miles outside of town. And so that was like huge, when I lived there. Everybody was talking about that. The locals, of course, knew it wasn't real. But everybody else around the country who had seen the movie, thought it was real. So there was like an influx of people into the area to check out the Burkittsville area and wander the woods and stuff like that, thinking that all of this was real. And so, I like some of the different found footage films. The first Paranormal Activity movie I thought was really well done. The movie As Above, So Below is kind of done in that similar fashion, although they never say it's found footage. It's kind of like a mishmash of documentary style and found footage type of stuff. So I think the style is interesting, but again, it gives people this perception that this story that they're showing up on the screen is absolutely true. And I get that is for a scare tactic and to thrill people, but it also becomes confusing for people. So let's see. Sherry, your sister, says she cannot watch The Exorcist at all. Well, and speaking of The Exorcist, so we had Dr. Heather Lynn on. We've had her on twice now, and we had her on here just a few months ago when her book Evil Archaeology came out, which features the big Pazuzu on the front of the book, but her inspiration for that book came from the case of a guy, and this really happened, where he thought that he was sacrificing people, like he was murdering people to appease Pazuzu, because basically he had watched The Exorcist a little too many times or something. Of course, he was off his rocker somewhere. So I'm not saying that the movie The Exorcist made him do it, but it did put a thought into his head that his sick mind just ran with. So you end up with stuff like that too, unfortunately. Robert Hanna, I saw the Haunting of Connecticut documentary years before the movie came out. The movie was totally the opposite of what the actual story is. Yeah, and that's kind of the problem with a lot of these movies. I mean, Amityville Horror was done solely to piggyback off of The Exorcist. Just the popularity that I had gotten at the time. Let's piggyback with another type of ghost story. And so, and I know it's a controversial topic, but I do believe that it was completely fabricated, and that when the lawyer comes forth and says, we created a story of a couple of bottles of wine, I believe him. So you see that, and then you see like today's day and age, the again, it's a great set of movies, but the Conjuring series, we already talked about the Perrin case. And Carol did not get possessed. It was the seance gone bad, and basically Roger punched out Ed, and that was that. and it was a haunting that occurred for 10 years. It was never eradicated. There are many spirits that are there, and they're opening the house back up. There are new owners now. We're actually going to have Corey Heinsohn on the beginning of October. We'll talk about that. But then even the second one, the Enfield Poltergeist case, Ed and Lorraine Warren weren't really involved with that. They showed up for like a day. They tried to push themselves into the situation, and some of the stuff, I will say, the controversial photos and all that, they included that in the movie, so I'll give them props for that. The other one, the big coming out of that series, is Annabelle. So now everybody's into the creepy dolls. Right. So, I mean, think about, at the end of this month, effect of all of this, creating the zombie dolls. You have two different effects here, okay? Because zombies became really popular with The Walking Dead and all that, and everybody's into the creepy dolls and everything now because of movies like Annabelle. Mm-hmm. So what do you think?
I mean, I didn't used to like dolls, to be honest. Actually, I take that back. It's those one creepy porcelain dolls. Those just creep me out. And I like regular dolls. I'm fine with dolls, but it's those porcelain ones that just something about their eyes just gets me. Now, I'll paint one and sell it. I may not, feel too thrilled about handling it or whatever, and I don't want to keep one on the property, so for sure I'm gonna get rid of it. But yeah, I mean, create your own zombie doll. That event is fun. It is so fun. And I've talked to other people at that event. They're like, I don't usually like dolls, but this is fun. This is fun. I didn't watch Annabelle. The Annabelle movies. I didn't watch
Okay,
Annabelle.
You didn't watch the Annabelle movies, but you saw the first Conjuring.
But
right?
The Conjuring series, yeah. But I'd never really seen any movies about dolls, prior to becoming freaked out by them. I just, at the cafe, there was a ton of porcelain dolls, and they lined the place. I mean, they were up above on a shelf, and they were just, oof. And we would investigate there at night, and everywhere you walked, it just felt like they were just in, all at one time, just watching you everywhere you went. And then finally we moved the dolls. They got moved, into storage and stuff like that because, oof, I don't know what it is that's so different about porcelain dolls and regular dolls, but just, to me, they all just give off this weird, creepy vibe, and I don't know if it's just me. It's probably just me.
I think a lot of people have that creepy vibe. I don't get. I mean, I look at it and I'm like, yeah, that's kind of creepy, but I'm looking at it like, oh, that's kind of creepy cool, But there are a lot of people that actually get creeped out about that. So Marcellus Walensky makes a good point. What based on a true story doesn't mean is it's completely factual. So yeah, basically when you see that it's based on a true story, that there's going to be a lot of stuff made up in it. They might have one or two facts if you're lucky. Well, they will have one or two facts that are true because they have to have something in there that's true. Yeah. But a lot of times you're going to find a lot of fabrication. Darren Buss, I'm very interested in the Amityville house. Would love to investigate it just to find out myself if it's haunted. And so this is interesting, talking about the effects of paranormal in horror movies. So it actually had an effect on me that helped propel me into this. So it is something that piqued my interest. I mean, it's not all negative effects. There are some positives that it piqued my curiosity. I wanted to know more, and so. It was actually from reading the book, and then I saw the movie after, that I had this desire to go to that house and find out what really happened there and to see if it really was haunted. So, I mean, that's kind of a positive, at least to me, at least as far as my origins, because I'm very happy to be involved with all this now. So, and Marcellus Walensky, I like movies like The Others with Nicole Kidman. It makes you think, and so that's another. I like that one. Yeah, a lot. Yeah, that was cool. It's a very cool movie. Highly recommend it, and it is one that I mean, it's not in your face with a bunch of jump scares and gore or anything like that. It's very subtle, and it does have a twist ending that makes you think, and so that is actually a positive effect there because it makes you think about other possibilities when it comes to the paranormal. That hey. Maybe these ghosts and spirits out there actually see us as ghosts and spirits. So it makes you wonder how all of this works. Yeah, I remember that movie. Because at the end I was like, what? Yeah. I watched it again. I mean, not too long after. It was a good one. I enjoy it. It's like up there in the top 5 of my favorite paranormal movies. Yeah. Yeah, so it's one of those things that has made me question how time really works, because we do hear from some people that we talk to that have told us their experiences that they they saw a spirit in their house. They saw a ghost, and it looked at them as if they were the ghosts, that they had walked into the room, and it was like they were the apparition. And so it makes you wonder and think, okay, so if you're walking into the room, you see somebody in 19th century garb, and it's an intelligent haunt, and that means you're seeing somebody from that time frame. But if they're looking at you and they're like, oh my God, there's a ghost, or would you look at that, or whatever, they're actually having a glimpse of the future. So it makes you really wonder how time is working here in that location. So yeah, a movie like The Others really makes you think about how paranormal activity in the spiritual world works. Mm-hmm. So that is a positive effect there. So Zippy is asking, have you gotten a chance to talk to the new owners of the house? He's talking about the old Perrin farmhouse. Yes, I have. When I was at Ocean State Paracon back in July, I got to speak with him. We've chatted a little bit over Facebook, and we're going to have him on as a guest October 8th. So be on the lookout for that. Dustin Samaria, he loves doll effects in horror movies. Best film for him is The Dolls, 1986. Cool. There's some talk about Child's Play down there, and they just remade Child's Play again. So, Jesky Wilson, what's the name of that boy doll who was made for a little boy and he kept it all of his life?
Wasn't that
sure.
Robert the Doll?
Well, Robert the Doll wasn't. I mean, he might be talking about Robert the Doll, but it wasn't made for him. And there's actually a big gap of time where he didn't have it. So when he went off on his own, because he got sent away to a boarding school after a while, and then he grew up, became an adult, became a painter, and he ended up moving back into the house when his mother grew ill and eventually died. So there was all the stuff that happened when he was young, and then later on as an adult. He could be talking about him. So there are a couple of Robert the Doll movies that they're kind of like, I don't know, lesser quality type movies. So I haven't actually watched them. So let's see. Trying to pick up your guys' questions here. So Vanessa Hogel mentioned, even on the funny side, there are those who believe Mano from The Craft is an actual deity to pray to. You used to watch The Craft. So I guess people pray to the deities from The Craft.
I never have. I mean, before I would just go follow him like a sheep, I want to do my research first, Definitely don't want to be like, oh, well, look at what happens whenever they, pray to that one or this one or that one in the movie. So I'm going to do that too, and that's what's going to happen to me. You can't do that. Don't just blindly follow. Research, forge your own path. Do your own thing. Do your own thing. You don't have to do what everybody else is doing. You'll be fine. You'll be fine. I promise.
Yeah, but I think it does become a thing with some of these different inspirations for movie. Not that necessarily, people are worshiping Freddy Krueger or something like that, but you take something like Valak, the demon nun, in that, okay, the name was derived from the old Goetic grimoires. They pulled that out of a hat somewhere. They did mention the Marquis of Snakes, that it is, or a quote-unquote president of hell, which I don't think they actually mentioned in the movies. They just call it the Marquis of Snakes. So you might have some people out there that start worshiping this thing, if it's even real, because a lot of people will just say, well, the Goetic grimoires are just kind of like demon folklore and aren't really real. So that's all controversial. But still, they think, and Greg Rinkin pointed out that he says, I can't count the number of people I've had to set straight on Valak. The people think it's a nun, and it's not at all. Yeah. It was a little boy riding on a two-headed dragon. That's the demon. So They're saying down there that we need to come out with Haunted Road Media, the movie.
Oh my God. A lot of it probably, I mean, with as many F-bombs as I drop on it.
You can drop F-bombs in movies.
I know, but dang.
So.
Dang.
Dang. All right. So, so I wanted to try this. We'll see if this works. We tested this with Vanessa Hogel the other week, and it worked. We got her on with a call into the show. So we're going to attempt a call in if somebody wants to try to call in, and we'll answer a question here that you guys might have. So I don't know how well you can see that. So call in. The number is 669-900-6833. You have to enter in this meeting ID as well, 829-821-407. So we'll see if anybody pops in. And if you do, then we'll answer a question. See if I can get on the right screen here. And of course it's not on the right screen. There we go. Okay. So we'll see if that kicks in with anything. All right. So I know. Long pause here. Dead air time, because I lost my list of questions. It's down here somewhere. Actually, I think we got all these questions.
Marcellus has a good one. So
what does Marcellus say?
Watching scary movies at a haunted location, can it stir up activity? And the answer is yes, it has for me, for sure. When I lived in Alton, and the house that I lived in, which is kind of where everything started for me, any type of paranormal movie, any time there was any investigating going on in the movie and the show and the whatever, when they asked a question, stuff would happen around me that wasn't happening before. So I would say yes, very much so.
Terry Tormino, Chipper Terry says, my nephew is one of the animators that designed The Nun. That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
That's really cool. Yeah, I mean, I'm not knocking on the industry. I mean, I love watching those different movies. It just, it does have an effect on, when we are investigating the paranormal and what people think that we do.
Oh, yeah, for entertainment value, those kind of movies and the people involved in them, that's great. It takes talent.
Oh, absolutely.
To do the things, especially those animators, the people involved in making, the stuff, what it is in those movies. That we're not knocking that at all. Not at all. So,
well, here's
the topic, the subject matter of, Valak. Now, people think that Valak was a nun. Valak was never a nun. But for the movie,
it works for the movie.
It works for the movie, yeah.
Yeah, and now, like on our Haunted Road Media YouTube channel, I mean, we have the different ghost stories about different like ghost nuns, like the Faceless Nun at the college in Indiana, or the Black Nun, Sarah Whitehead from London. So it does cause you to go down some other rabbit holes and explore other stories and other folklore and other legends, and learn about things that you didn't necessarily learn or knew before. Jessica Wilson makes an interesting point here. The Craft, Charms, all those shows made a lot of people want to become witches. So, like you like practical magic, not a horror movie, but yeah, these things do inspire people to. I mean, I would think it in that sense. Excuse me. It allowed people to become more open-minded and not have this constant negative connotation about what witches are, that they were able to see that there's a more creative, positive side to this.
Yeah. For me, when I decided to kind of start wandering down that path, it was after being exposed to women who had been dabbling in the craft since before those movies even came to be. And I started meeting more of those types of people. and I wasn't getting any answers on the path that I was on, so I hopped over onto their path, and here I am. So it didn't work that way for me, but I can see others relating to them, being like, oh well, yeah, I kind of have those thoughts, or I kind of think this is cool, and maybe I should give it a shot, see what happens. And then they may find out, yeah, this is really not as cool as I thought it was going to be, or they may be like, you know what, I feel a lot better about myself now, and then look at this, I found some more people that I can relate to, and then so it could happen that way for people.
So we got a couple of interesting questions coming in here. If I would paste that into the right place, and I'm not. I'm butchering this. All right. So Robert Hanna asked, Mike and Shauna, what was one horror movie that scared the crap out of you when you were very young? When I was very young, I have to think about that, because I didn't. When I was like very young, my parents, had control of the TV, so I didn't see a lot of horror movies when I was really young. I remember catching a glimpse of some movie where there was a teddy bear that had, what was it? First there was the black cat that was going across the roof, and then inside the one room of the house there was a teddy bear, and the eye was bleeding or something. So that would be like from very young. I guess maybe moderately young, maybe Poltergeist when I first saw it. I don't know. What about for you? Because I saw Poltergeist when I was like in 4th grade or something. I don't know.
Off the subject, but Candy can't get through. It says wireless callers cannot connect.
Oh, okay.
Probably a lot of people are going to be using cell phones.
They should be able to, because I call into that, or have called into that with the cell phone. So I don't know. I'll have to take a look into it. Vanessa called the other day, so
I would just blame it on Frontier, Candy.
Blame it on Frontier.
Even if it's not their fault, it's their fault.
Yeah.
For me, I don't know. My sister and I watched The Exorcist together. Actually, when we were young children, and it was in the house I later ended up living in. But she couldn't sleep with the lights on for a long time, with the lights off for a long time. Couldn't be in a room with lights off. And, she was really too young to watch it, but I let her watch it anyway. So,
okay.
Well, in my defense, they should have been more mindful of what we were watching on TV. All the adults were busy. So left to my own devices, I let my, younger sister watch a movie that she shouldn't have, and it gave her nightmares. Arachnophobia.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Anything with spiders would scare you. Yeah.
Oh, no. And I was older when I watched this one. But Silent Hill.
Okay.
Oof. With the mannequin spider.
Mm-hmm.
The mannequin spider where it had the different heads
anything
on
with
it
spiders for
and
her
stuff. Well, that was creepy though. It would take like mannequin heads and stick it on each of its legs, and it was even not just that it was a spider, but just that it had like these oversized mannequin doll heads on its legs and stuff like that. Have you ever seen it?
I haven't.
What? Oh my gosh. Okay. Well, I'm going to be
sending you the video. I have time to watch everything.
I'm going to be sending you the video. Like, I had nightmares about that thing. Oh my God. It was terrible. Terrible, terrible.
Giovanni Fitzgerald throws down in the chat, The Omen back in the 80s. Yeah, whenever you have like a demon child, that's pretty creepy.
That was a good one.
Yeah. Let's see. So Zippy asks, what are your thoughts about the exorcism of Emily Rose? So inspired off of the Annalise Michel case, which I thought the take on the exorcism of Emily Rose was was a nice change of pace because it focused on the court case, and then you got the backstory of the exorcism and all that, rather than just, here's somebody that catches a demon, almost like they catch the flu, and then they slowly get worse and worse and worse until they finally full possession, and then we'll call in the priest, and we'll hold her down, and all of that stuff until finally somebody says, well, put the demon into me, and the demon goes into them, and then they die. And it's not only The Exorcist that happened. There are other exorcism movies that use that same device. But that seemed to be like the architecture of all those type of exorcism movies. So The Exorcism of Emily Rose was, like I said, a refreshing change of pace because it actually featured the court trial rather than the exorcism. In the exorcism part of it was just the backstory that led up to the court case. So I thought it was well conceived idea.
I thought Salem's Law was kind of creepy.
Oh, okay.
Any of those Children of the Corn movies. Ugh, I didn't like them either.
Yeah, I'm trying to think.
It's funny because, all the kids in all those movies used to creep me out, but now I'm all about them. Of course in the movies they make children, ghosts of children, they're always like these terrible things, but I don't feel like that's true all the time now.
Yeah, I don't know. I think when you do have like the possessed demon kids and stuff like that, that kind of like is really freaking creepy. Okay, well, somebody connected here, so we'll try it here. Put on your headphones.
Maybe it was.
Hang on. I know, dead air time again here because we're gonna get the headphones on. So we're trying to call in here. So, hello, you're on the air with Beyond the Shadows. How you doing?
I'm Mike. Hi, Sean. It's Tim Show.
Hey, Tim. How's it going?
I didn't know if my phone would work or not, but
so it must be Frontier. Sorry, Candy.
Well, we're all not real fond of Frontier, I know.
So, what's your question, Tim? Great to have you on the air.
Well, I was, you talked about the effects of different movies on paranormal culture, and we talked about how, certain movies reflect differently for entertainment purposes. But I was curious, is there any movie that you feel accurately reflects what really happened?
Yeah, that's a good question. We talked about The Others, and I think that was a very good reflection of how it works. Not a horror movie, but the movie The Gift kind of does a good job of reflecting. It's a lot of psychics that I've talked to say that really accurately reflects how psychic abilities work. There's another one that's like that too. That does, The Sixth Sense. And Tim, you need to turn down your volume over there.
Yeah, I've got. Hang on a second. You know what? I'm gonna. There. Okay.
Okay.
That.
Yeah, because. Yeah.
I'm lagging behind too.
That's all right. Yeah, because your volume was coming through here, and so we were basically had a bunch of feedback.
Okay, it's muted now.
Okay, very good. So yeah, I think The Others, if that's the way things work, I think would be a decent reflection of that. And then two movies that I've been told by psychics that do a good job of accurately reflecting how their abilities work are The Gift and The Sixth Sense.
Mm-hmm.
I've been meaning to watch The Sixth Sense. I haven't gotten around to that. I got a whole bunch of them on my to-watch list thanks to your Halloween video last year.
Oh, and I got to throw this out there. Santiago Cirillo just joined. Hi-ya!
Hi-ya!
He's cool. We love Santi.
Yeah.
So, I just saw him this weekend at SilCon. So, So yeah, Tim, if you haven't seen Sixth Sense yet, you definitely need to go watch that one. That one is an absolute classic. So we won't give away the twist ending on you, but yeah, that's a way that psychics have said it really accurately portrays the way some of their abilities work. So all right. Thank you for joining, my friend. Appreciate it.
Thank you very much for the opportunity to call in and say hi to both of you. I'm going to head back to Facebook Live. I'll be in there if I have any more questions.
All right. Sounds great.
Awesome.
Take care.
Talk to you guys later. Take care.
All right. So that was our first call-in. Tim Schoen.
Awesome.
Right. So, yeah, your sister saying Sixth Sense is really good movie, twisty, turny. Stacey Comiskey is also saying that The Gift was really good. Yeah. Yeah, both of those movies, psychics have told me, people that really have those abilities have said that those two really do a good job of accurately portraying the way it works for them. So, cool. Where else do we want to go down this rabbit hole with this? Because we've hit on a lot of different pieces of conversation with this. You know, the fact that I think it's going to be an ongoing struggle, you know, as we look toward the future here when it comes to the horror movie genre, which again, I find very entertaining, very fascinating. There are elements that are included within these movies that, and I guess this is the thing, is that, you know, take it as entertainment, know that what you're seeing is a fictional story, but take those little elements that are sprinkled in there that might be like, you know, based off of true. Like when we were talking about Valak, okay, look up who Valak really is. You know, look up what those Goetic grimoires really were. There's history behind those. You know, so dive into that. Anything that has to do with any of those. When they start talking about like old books and texts in the movies, or some sort of, you know, world history that was associated with this place, or, you know, some sort of legend, you know, look those things up, find out more information about it. I think that's something for me. I mean, that's how I got inspired into a lot of this, is, you know, when it comes to the movies, when it comes to some of the books, that it's like, okay, this was interesting, let me find out some more. So I think that's as far as the future is concerned, you know, learn from it. Terry Tormino, the first Halloween movie was pretty scary. Oh, I love I watch that every Halloween, actually. The first Halloween movie. Yep, absolutely. Oh, you know what? Robert Hanna's right. I should have done it when Tim Schoen was on the phone. This episode of Beyond the Shadows brought to you by Haunted Road Roast. It helps you hunt ghosts. Had to do it. Yeah, Nick Millay, the truth is definitely out there. So, I mean, I think there are things that can be learned, you know, from the various horror movies. You know, it can be a thrill, but there are things to learn as well. And I guess it kind of depends on where the writers and the director are pulling their inspiration from. That maybe you can get a glimpse inside the rabbit hole that they are starting to go down. So, completely different. It's an off-topic question. Megan Hunsberry, I don't catch your lives much. What made you guys investigate that building in Vandalia? I actually lived right down the road from there for a while. Take it away, Shauna.
Actually, it was a friend of ours that we had met through Lee Ehrlich. His name's Chris Mason, and he was very good friends with the owner of the building in Vandalia. And he says, hey, I have a spot for you guys. And actually, I got to go before Mike did. And went there, and he said, he told about some of his experiences and stuff there, and it sounded pretty cool. So I was like, yeah, you know, I gotta go. And I would love to be able to go there more often. So there's a lot going on there. If it's allowed, I highly recommend, you know.
Well, we contacted this last time that we went, which was I guess a little over a year ago now, we made contact with both of the child spirits. The one that's there running around in the flower shop, and then the other one that's upstairs. And we got a name for the one. Mm-hmm. So we've started to make progress there, and so that's it. Really adheres to the idea of continuing to go back. That it's not just one investigation. You get some activity, and you say, well, my meter lit up, or I got a photo, or whatever. That no, there's more to it than that, and so it's an ongoing investigation that you go back again and again and again and again. Santiago Cirilla says, when we filmed Rosalie at Pottstown Elementary, if I could speak, we had a crazy amount of paranormal activity. Very cool. So, haunted school. We've done some haunted schools.
Yeah.
So, but see, that's another thing too, is that sometimes these different horror movies are filmed at places that are haunted. So, like we had, Kyle Mecca on here, the writer and director of The Dwelling, actually, is no doubt. And where they filmed, that hospital had been very haunted. Even the house that they investigated, they had a little bit of stuff going on in the house, but the barn in the back, which they didn't actually use in the movie, was very haunted. So that can happen too, where locations that you're actually filming at are actually very haunted. So, question from Marcellus Walensky. What is the best movie that depicts fairies? That's tough because, and here's why it's tough, is because we're still trying to figure out what exactly the fairies are, the fae folk are. There's all that legend and folklore. And you pick up a book on fairies, right, and you start leafing through it, and it's all like this hierarchy and social structure of the fae people. But my question is, who sat down with the fae, with the fairies, and asked, okay, so what's your social structure and how is all this mapped out? What's your different hierarchy? I mean, it didn't happen. Their legends and folklore handed down throughout hundreds, if not thousands, of years. So there's a lot to sift through. But we started that research because we had experienced something that we thought, if there really are fairies, then this is probably it. We had the illuminated ball of light that was dancing all over the place, but started off as like a bar of light and then started waving like maybe wings, and then was all over the place in the air.
It like bend it a little bit. You said come up like a little V, and then it was
it was like a little V on the ground like that. So it was like there was somebody really, really tiny emitting its own light standing there on the ground. We could take these off now.
Yeah, there was no other plausible explanation for it, considering the layout of the structure that we were in and the fact that there was only one source of light. And it was
my flashlight that was on the floor.
It was sitting on the floor pointing out in a direction where everything else was not. And it just, if we had to describe it, I've seen balls of light before, but they did not behave like this particular ball of light. Say orbs. I've seen balls of light that gave off their own balls that gave off their own light. It wasn't a dust orb, but I didn't capture it in a picture. I didn't have light on it. Just I'm in the room and all of a sudden, and then it would, the motion. It wasn't a bug. It wasn't dust. I will try to blow off everything as non-paranormal first, and then every once in a while something will happen like that and be like, I don't have an explanation for that. But even with all the balls that I've seen that have given off their own light, this one was much different than that. And so, I have to say that, but I've not really seen any movies that...
Yeah, I can't think of a movie that depicts a fairy like that. I guess, the old Peter Pan cartoon from Disney would show Tinkerbell as like a little ball of light flying around sometimes, which I guess is probably why we thought, maybe fairy because of that kind of effect. It wasn't like, okay, there's the new show Carnival Row from Amazon, so this, definitely not full-size human being with wings, which is an interesting show if you get past the fact of what it's not. It's not high fantasy. It's not very magical and mystical like you would think a fairy thing would be. It's like 19th century London that has fae folk. So it's a cross genre show. If you get past that, it's a decent show. So it's definitely not that. I can't really think of one that depicts what we saw in the way we saw it.
Yeah, Marcellus. So he remembers when I told him about it, he thought I lost it. I was like, you know what? It took me a minute to kind of wrap, my mind around it, because I've seen apparitions, I've seen shadows, I've seen, balls of light. This was so different from that, and so I want to say it might be, a spirit of some type, but it just doesn't act like one. And I'm like, and then we had to, we believe in spirits, we believe in, all these things. If you believe in one thing, you kind of have to research the rest of it too. Have I ever seen a demon? Probably not, but I'm sure they exist. Not as often as people think they do, but
yeah,
pretty sure, they do. Not a religious person, but do I believe there's angels out there? Yep, probably. I've never seen one to my knowledge, but that doesn't mean it doesn't exist. So do fairies exist? If I believe in other realms of existence, if I believe in spirits, I have to kind of say that that's there too. I just want to see it.
Here's what it comes down to. All of these legends and folklore are based on some sort of truth. Somebody at some point in time witnessed something, and their kernel of truth is in that story. And over all the hundreds or maybe even thousands of years, the other stories and everything else was built on top of that and built on top and built on top until it became this huge fantastical thing. But somewhere in there was the original sighting that somebody saw and took back to their people and said, I saw this. And then they probably told that story over and over again, like, I saw this. Maybe they started sitting around the campfire and like, we're going to talk about, Biff's story. He saw the kid on the bread or whatever. But and from that sitting around the campfire, the story got expounded upon. That happens. That's your legends and folklore for you. So somewhere in there is the original truth. We just don't know what it is. Melanie Baggy says that we should write a fairy screenplay. The subject matter really hasn't been explored at all that much in movies. It really. Not too much. Just usually with kid stuff, fairy godmothers and things like that. But as far as like the fae folk, not really. Like Carnival Row is like the first thing in like years I can think of, and it's like a very different take than what we thought it was going to be. Still cool to me, you had to get through the first 3 episodes, and then once the fourth kicked, the show took off. So Marcellus Walensky says, St. Omer Cemetery by Ashmore Estates. A group of investigator friends of mine witnessed at night this strange glowing lights, not lightning bugs.
We've only always been there in the day.
Yeah.
I've got to be honest, though, that place... and I was hoping for some Caroline Barnes energy,
Well, you got the kids.
But I didn't get her at all. I mean, I showed up, I was like, hey, sister, what's going on? Because that's, the local, witch, legend there. And I was hoping to interact with her, get some kind of action over by where she was at. But that didn't happen to me at all. It was all of the children buried there. And there was this one spot, and and I just couldn't get away from it. Like usually I've got a really good, shit on kind of like buffer some of it out, but not this time. Because usually you can walk away from something that's uncomfortable and you can kind of get your bearings again, but just every time I turned around and looked down, there was a child buried there. And then there's this one spot where I just wanted to crawl in there and just lay down and just, it was terrible. So that's what that cemetery does to me. We don't really go in a lot of cemeteries at night. Local law enforcement.
Yeah, local law enforcement kind of squash on that.
If you call them,
Yeah, you have to arrange it if you know somebody. So Melanie Baggy, is it worthwhile? She's referring back to Carnival Row, gotten mixed reviews. So I did a podcast review of it. So if you go to Mike Ricksecker Audio Journey on Spotify, TuneIn, iTunes, Stitcher, it's on there on Google as well, and you can listen to that. I think it's like 9 minutes or whatever. So I give a decent review. I mean, it's like I said, you gotta, if you get that backstory for the first 3 episodes and kind of get an understanding of what's going on, because you might be confused there for a little while, and get to like episode 4, it kind of takes off in episode 4. So
Santiago had a good comment.
Yes. Oh, I see a story.
Yeah, and then I have one for my sister too.
Okay, so the Rolling Hills, is that the one you're talking about?
Yeah.
From Santiago, says I was attacked by hundreds of orbs at Rolling Hills Asylum in New York. It was the room and hallway where most of the scratches and attacks happen, but I attracted nothing but positive energy that they were hungry for. I passed out and woke up in another room.
That's freaky.
That is. I will be going to Rolling Hills here.
Yeah,
at the end of September.
Yeah, add that to the list. I'll get there someday.
Yep. So we'll check out. Yeah, I mean, if they were like illuminated balls of light and going after them, I mean, I wonder if they're almost like your Twinkles.
Well,
or a little, but maybe a little different. I don't know.
So Santiago, and you say like there's stuff that follows me around, and they look like one twinkling star. There's not ever more than one at the same time, but I refer to them as twinkles. Oh, look, there's a twinkle. It just blinks one time, like an airplane in the sky or whatever, and then if it's in motion, I'll see it blink again. That's the kind of stuff. Whenever I say that's what I'm talking about. So what you're talking about, is that actually like the balls of light they give off their own light and stuff like that? Because I see those once in a while too, but I kind of credit those to being, I call them fairies. I just do.
Yeah, they seem like yellow. It. As far as like what we've, kind of like your first idea of what a fairy might be. It's kind of like, well, and even though the thing that we saw on the Golden Rod, we're like, okay, maybe a water sprite or any of those like related terms, or even like the thing down at the locks.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, Candy Orton says 2010 to 2015 Lost Girl TV series is about the Fae. It was pretty good. I'm not familiar with it, so.
I'm not either.
Yeah.
My sister.
Sedona says I've seen Twinkles. So cool. So
yeah,
another person seen
tell me
like
about it, because all of a sudden after being on the boat, was when I first started seeing them, and then now I see them all the time. Mm-hmm. Well, he does too.
Not as often as she does, but yeah, I'll see him sometimes.
Yeah,
Antonia Rogers, what do you guys think of great balls of light, not orbs, but bigger? So
there's actually a legend in Calhoun, Hardin, near Hardin, Illinois, near Godar's Diamond, Godar's Landing. My sister knows where that's at, But there's supposed to be this big ball of light. These couple of guys, whatever, were in a boat there at Godar's Landing, and then all of a sudden this older man wearing coveralls and whatever. I'll have to look it up and show it to you, because it's one of the local legends. But it started out, they saw this great big fireball, and then the next thing they know, they got this old man in the boat. So my sister, I gotta say this before I forget it, was one of the pictures that we took at the cafe, and I think it was the picture that had Byron in it. But there were a couple of other pictures, and it looked like there was just eyes everywhere, but knowing now what I really wasn't too familiar with then when it came to analyzing pictures is that sometimes people see faces and stuff and it's not really faces. That doesn't mean that anybody did anything to the picture. It's just that, like, if you're looking at a spot on the wall and if you look at it long enough, oh, it looks like a picture of Jesus, you know? Or it looks like, oh, that's a man's face. It's a man's face. It could be matrixing, or it could be, but pareidoia is what it's called whenever people see faces all the time, you know. So that's what that means. I have to find those pictures again and look at them, but they're probably not real faces. Probably just sometimes your eyes just play tricks on you.
The ones where you see faces in the balls, I'm not into that, but the very first time I went to Black Bear Church in out in the middle of nowhere in Oklahoma. The moment I walk in, there's this ball of light. It's in the church. Take a photo. It's a huge illuminated ball of light. So that, yes, that's something. But then later on, I'm taking these photos, and people always talk about things looking in the windows. And so, I was getting some basically dust orbs, in the windows, but they were like a little brighter than usual. They had like a more defined outline, and some of the people are like, oh, you can see something in there, and that must be one of the, must be the spirit energy of one of the shadow people that come up and look through the windows. And it's like, no, not those, but that big, huge one when I first walked in. Yeah. So, what about, we're winding down toward the end here, the Charmed series.
I like it.
Yeah.
I liked it. Stuff doesn't, at least not for me anyway. Stuff does not happen for me like that in the world of witchcraft. The glamours, I don't really think it happens that way. I just don't. I'd have to see it to believe it. Right now I'm saying I don't believe it just because I've never seen it. Have I seen things work for people? Yeah, but I've not seen them, aim a ball of light at anybody and shoot it and poof, now they've got a tail or they're gone or whatever.
Well, see, that's my short adventures in Reiki. I always wanted, because I can get that energy ball right here between my hands. I've always wanted to like push it out or like throw it at somebody, but not be invisible like that, to actually like become like electric blue energy or something. doesn't work like that. So I'm seeing a lot of questions down in here from Nick Moulet, Robert Hanna, and some others about fairies, gnomes, leprechauns, things like that. We're gonna have to do a show on that, because it's like that's way off topic from where we're going. I mean, I guess you could talk about the movie Leprechaun versus what real leprechauns are. I mean, that's completely fictional and fantastical, based very loosely on the leprechaun legends from Ireland. Kind of like what we were talking about before. They're taking a couple little possible facts and like running with it. So we'll do that another time. Maybe we'll do that next week or something, since you guys are looking for questions on that. Yeah, so all right, I think we'll go ahead and wrap it up. So Sherry's saying that would be cool if we did that. So thank you guys for hanging out with us tonight too, because we're a bit over our hour mark here. So thank you for tuning in and hanging out with us, talking about the effects of horror movies on paranormal culture. I think we covered this from a number of different angles, and started getting into some other more kind of general topics of investigating the paranormal and our experiences and mythical creatures. So, but hey, that's what a lot of the movies are based off of. And so I think it's just, it comes down to making sure, at least from our perspective, as we continue to Edge of the Rabbit Hole, Beyond the Shadows, the Haunted Road Media YouTube channel, the books, all of that, as people watch these things and they develop questions that, we tried to steer them in the right direction, kind of give as much accurate information as we can. Again, most of the things that we deal with are theoretical anyway, so there's still the big question mark out there over what it all is. But Valak is not a demon nun, that much I know.